Facebook just to catch up, but that'll fade away because I'll get tired of Facebook, just like I did the last 6 months when I hadn't been on it hardly. So,
right. Definitely. Yeah, I was able to catch up with a couple of elementary school friends.
Oh wow!
While I was at home, doing those couple of weeks, doing those few days that I was at home. So, that was refreshing.
Nice. I passed by my old elementary school, which is no longer an elementary school. It's now some other kind of repurposed educational building. But I mean, I still
my elementary school is not even there. So at least your building is still there.
Yeah. See, every time I go back, I have these visuals when I drive around places. And I don't know if anybody listening, watching, whenever you go home, and especially if you've lived and moved far away from home. Or
stay on hard.
hello and welcome to another edition of the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan and A.D. Drew, the gang is back together again. Now only one of us is still single and lonely and looking for love. Drew, how you doing, my man?
And I'm doing great, man. Had 2 weeks of
bliss. Go ahead. Good adjective.
Adventure. Adventure is a good way to put it.
Adventure. Okay.
Yes, I was so happy to get back to my own bed after being on the road essentially for 2 weeks with business commitments and personal commitments.
I hear you. I was away from the comforts of my crib for 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, but you was at your mama's house, so that's a little different.
Yeah, well, but still wasn't my bed though. It wasn't my bed. I still lived out the suitcase practically. It felt like. So now it was good to see my people as long as I did. It's probably the longest I have been in Indianapolis since probably college years, man. I hadn't spent that much time.
Vacation.
Yeah. And honestly, I only saw maybe a couple of friends, man. You know, it really, things didn't always go as I planned them to go, but it was still worked out, and I'm thankful all the same. So
I got to ask you the unfortunate question that I ask when I go back home.
Yeah.
But some of the people that you left in the same spot where you left them at, good, bad, and ugly?
No, I mean, you know what? Probably everybody's life is, a lot of people's lives are moving in good directions, a little bit better. Like I said, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to catch up with as many people as I had planned, just because of some circumstances that went on with the trip getting up there. So,
Right.
it just kind of was what it was. So I'll have to put a rain check out on catching up with people. And so, but look, this day and age, I think the more sobering thing is learning when you do catch up with I caught up with a good buddy, and then I find out what I missed, people that have sadly passed away that I did not know passed away. That's the kind of news that is like, damn, I'm getting old or I'm out of the loop. So,
Right.
I've made more of a commitment. I flashed more of a presence on Facebook just to catch up, but that'll fade away because I'll get tired of Facebook, just like I did the last 6 months when I hadn't been on it hardly. So,
right. Definitely. Yeah, I was able to catch up with a couple of elementary school friends.
Oh wow!
While I was at home, during those couple of weeks, during those few days that I was at home. So, that was refreshing.
Nice. I passed by my old elementary school, which is no longer an elementary school. It's now some other kind of repurposed educational building. But I mean, I still
my elementary school is not even there. So at least your building is still there.
Yeah. See, every time I go back, I have these visuals when I drive around places. And I don't know if anybody listening, watching, whenever you go home, and especially if you've lived and moved far away from home, when you go back and you just drive around certain places and you have these flashback memories. I used to ride my bike up this street, and I remember there used to be the bike shop and the here's the spot where I used to go get my comics. None of those places are what they were, so they're all something else now.
Yeah. No, for me it's, hey, that street wasn't a one-way street when I was living here, or that wasn't a dead end, or they done totally rerouted this street now, when they put that red light there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing I did want to comment on while you guys were away carrying my weight, while I was away, you guys were carrying my weight. Great job on SWAC Media Day. I was able to catch up and watch all 5 hours of it. Yes, folks, it was 5 hours, but it did not seem like 5 hours as you guys were going through the interviews and had different people in and out, and the conversations that you guys were able to do. And it was just great. I just hate that I missed the camaraderie of being in Birmingham, Alabama with you guys.
Look, the most beautiful thing about that is catching up with everybody, because look, honestly, so many people you've seen on Zooms and Twitter and Facebook and things like that. So actually being able to put faces with, actually I should say whole bodies with the upper torsos that you
and here's to be able to give somebody a pound or shake their hand. Now you got to go use the hand sanitizer afterwards, but just to be able to do that much.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest, I don't even think it was that serious. I mean, look, I think everyone who was there was, look, that's the thing. I'd say very few people were with masks. I think pretty much most of the people there were vaccinated, even though they requested and asked us to wear masks. Most of the people, I think, had been vaccinated who were there. And there were very few, remember how we were places and there was tons of hand sanitizer? I almost couldn't find any hand sanitizer. So
they had the one at the entrance and that was it, probably.
Probably. And there were, now that I say it, there were fewer handshakes. I just recall, I guess because maybe you're more conscious, there were more fist bumps, but even a few people you handshake, I'm more aware of what not to do with my hands after, like I didn't do all of this and all, you didn't go, not that I was germaphobe. Well, I'm a mini germaphobe, but I think coming out of this pandemic, you're more aware of things. And so, yeah, I wasn't walking around squirting Purell on my hand every 5 seconds, but I wasn't shaking everybody's hands. It was like, hey, good to see you. And just kind of, all right, fist bit and just kind of leave it at that. We just kind of keep it moving.
Right.
But it was good to see as many people as we saw and talk to as many people as we talked to.
It was just good to have an in-person media day.
And look,
Even
man,
though
I
I was
had
unable to participate, I still had the video watch it. But just the fact that there were people in the building.
yeah, and I thought if you could sense from our vantage point, we were in the media TV room, which was buzzing. It was jumping. I mean, you had of course behind us somewhere was HBCU game day. Another show was back that behind us as well. I didn't quite make out the name of their show, didn't get a chance to talk to those brothers, but so many people in this space now doing and talking about HBCUs, football and athletics is it's very cool. And so, you know, we don't, at least me personally, I don't get any extra. There's nothing for me that says, hey, we were one of the first, or hey, we've been there the longest, or nah, there's none of that. It's just, I've always said the more people that are covering HBCU athletics, it helps everybody. So the question is, how do you share? Do you share our content? Those, if you're watching and listening to us, it's real important that you share us, that you tell a friend. The more and more you share and like, especially in your HBCU
recording
circle,
in progress
communities, you know what I'm saying? That's the kind of stuff that's going to help us in the long run. So, and that's going to help grow this in the long run. So, you know, all good stuff, all good stuff. All right, we got all kinds of stuff going on, flashing around. So, yeah, we're getting back in the groove of things. The BCSN SportsWrap here, A.D. Drew, Brian Fulford. Just want to remind you, follow us, like, subscribe. You know the places at my BCSN1 on Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Facebook. Not only can find both of our Facebook pages, the Black College Sports Network page, you can find our page at BCSN SportsWrap. Go download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app on Google and Apple Play Store. Look, it's awesome to be a part of doing this thing now with the Carlos Brown Show, with the pregame show. Soon to be, we'll have BJ Jones joining us, I believe. And, you know, a few other, we're just trying to really expand and give people different voices to talk about this thing. And we're doing school specific stuff. You know, of course, the pregame show covers Jackson State. Recently, we've got the O&G Strike Zone, which, you know, primarily focused with Florida A&M. And I'm sure, you know, there'll be some other spinoffs as well. So whether it be school specific or general purpose, we're trying to cover from as many different angles as possible. So,
and don't forget, Knights of the Round Table will be returning for football season also, where we have a glutton of reporters from the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association joining us for a roundtable discussion of whatever's happening in sports in a particular week.
Yeah, and you know, let me say, I think the good thing that people, why you want to watch that show is if you're interested in what the people, it takes a lot of dedication, time, and energy to cover HBCU athletics. And I know if you're just a consumer, that's one thing, and you invest in consuming. But imagine investing in consuming, but then also creating content, which, I mean, that's a tall task. It's not easy. So there are a lot of people that are coming together as content creators in their various forms. And that's essentially Knights of the Round Table. They give different voices, the content creators. We all have different opinions. We see things differently. You know, I'll give an example. You know, the most recent story or controversy coming out of SWAC Media Day, you know, the whole Deion Sanders walking away from that presser, virtual press conference. We all had different takes on it. I mean, whether you read my story or, you know, that was not everybody's agreement. You know, that was just my take on it, my thought on it. Other people had different takes and different thoughts. That comes out in a show like that, gives you a chance to kind of hear everybody's thoughts. So that's why that's a good show. And when Drew, who's the executive producer of that, when he gets that back up and going, you'll find that on the network as well.
Yes, definitely, Brian.
All right, Drew, let's get into this episode is really talking more about media days, because we're right. Look, man, we're here. Football is back. It's here. I mean, look, this is the end of July. We've got football media days last week, football media days this week, and then pretty much fall camp starts. And so last week we had Tennessee State's Ohio Valley Conference football media day with Eddie George. Then, of course, we had the SWAC media day, and then the week ended with the CIAA's media day. So we're going to try to hit on all three of those in this particular episode. And then this, as we're recording this upcoming week, you've got the SIAC. Well, actually, let me take it back. You've got Hampton and North Carolina A&T as part of the Big South. Then you have the SIAC Media Day, and then you have the MEAC Media Day. So all three divisions, all three levels, and I'm not even sure about the NAIA. So we'll have to, I don't know if you recall seeing when Langston's with the Sooner Athletic Conference and the NAIA was, Drew, but I would imagine.
We've got Langston and Texas College. I believe those are the only two. Say it again.
I was saying that's part of the Sooner, right? Yeah, I think those are both part of the Sooner, right?
Yes, I believe those are the only two that we have that are still in AIA.
Right. Yeah.
Haven't heard anything from Lincoln of Missouri.
Oh well, we got Florida Memorial
and Florida Memorial. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm sure those media days are I have to look. I would imagine if they're not this week, they're next week as well. So I would imagine all of the media days will be kind of taken care of by the 1st of October, 1st of August, excuse me.
Right. I believe we've got up to, I believe it's either 52 or 54 HBCUs that are playing football as of right now.
All right. And, one of the things that
not to cut you off, with the addition of Bluefield State, who will be playing their first year of football this year in West Virginia.
Division II, correct?
Division II.
All right. So let's get into talking a little bit about the Ohio Valley Conference very quickly and Tennessee State. Just a little, just some bullet points regarding Tennessee State. Of course, very familiar, Eddie George, the new head coach. I would encourage anybody, I haven't heard any podcasts or interviews with George since, and there may be some from this media day. I haven't seen it. I've only read things. I haven't heard any audio. I would encourage anybody to go back and search for 21st and Prime. I believe it's episode 63 from like the first week in May, where Eddie George comes on Deion Sanders' show. It's like right after the NFL draft. It's like May 4th or something like that. I listened to it a little earlier. Went back. I heard it originally a couple of months ago. Listened to it again. George gives some good information, some good background on how he came into this role. Some of it is being reported recently in some stories that I've seen as if it were new, but I think people are just kind of catching up on the story. But it's a good background piece, a good conversation he had with Sanders on how he came into the role. And one of the big things that I got out of that was that Deion told Eddie George back when he was trying to figure out, hey, what about this role? What is this something I need to do? How can I be a coach? And he basically explained there's two types of coaches. There's your X's and O's coaches and your CEO coach. We even have those in basketball, Drew. And I know. There's some of us who are really good in the minutia of calling plays in the midst of a game, and then there are some of us who are not. You're more of a preparation, feel of the game kind of thing, And so the same thing in football, because a football staff is like a mini organization. You have your CEO type guys, and then you also have your X's and O guys. Your guys, and some guys, it's hard to manage both. So I think once that kind of light was shown, or that was kind of explained to George really embraced the concept of, you know what? I've done things in the business community. I've done things with my foundation. I know football. I know football people. I know what I want from football people. Now, how can I help these young men? And I think that's what you're going to get from Eddie George. But back to this team, preseason pick 5th in the Ohio Valley Conference. Now, the interesting thing about that, Drew, Tennessee State has the second most players that were on the preseason all-conference team. They only had one all-conference offense, defense, special teams. There's no second team or anything like that. Tennessee State had 8 players. The team who was picked to finish first, Murray State, had 9. And I believe the team who was picked second had 6. And the team who was picked third had 7. So again, Tennessee State has the players to compete for an OVC title according to the preseason predictions. Them being picked 5th is probably a product of A, their record from last year, B, you got a head coach with no head coaching experience. So, you know, if George is able to bring in the kind of staff that he's been out picking, that will be the advantage. He's got Hugh Jackson, former head coach, former offensive coordinator, as his OC and quarterbacks coach. Defensive coordinator is a little young, but he's got some consulting help coming in with Jeff Fisher. He's bringing in some other guys. I believe some of the names that I saw in some of the bios have NFL coaching experience, but he's looking to build on. I mean, he's got an outstanding look. There were 4 guys on the offense that were part of the all-conference team, 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball. He's got the best kicker in the conference in Antonio Zita.
Maybe the best kicker in FCS.
Might be the best kicker overall in FCS, definitely. And I think the one big thing for Tennessee State is what are you going to do at the quarterback position? Because I believe the young man who was quarterbacking them the past year, Isaiah, first name is Isaiah. I can't think of it. I'm trying to look and see if I pulled up the last name. I thought I had saved it. But anyway, the young man who had started most of the games for them last year, he'll probably have the first opportunity, first crack at it, or you'll see what'll come out of camp. You know, but if they're able to be productive in the quarterback position, because this team was primarily a running team last year, they're going to be special. And they do have a special running back. Devon Starling was a freshman standout, newcomer of the year. He's going to be special. Now I think you got to develop a passing game around him. Some things to be aware of as it relates to Tennessee State. All of their home games are going to be played in Nissan Stadium. Now, Nissan Stadium is the home of the Tennessee Titans. They've only got 4 home games, but it's important to note that those 4 home games are all going to be played in Nissan Stadium. That includes a homecoming game against the preseason favorite, Murray State, on October 30th. Now, look at this non-conference schedule, Drew. Tell me your thoughts on this non-conference schedule. Week 1, 2, and 3, they play Grambling in the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic in Canton, Ohio. And would you believe Grambling, Tennessee State, this is the first ever meeting?
I find that truly hard to believe.
That's amazing, right?
You would think somewhere the egos of Big John Merritt and Eddie Robinson would have crossed
somewhere in the right
somewhere in the 50s or the 60s. But I guess possibly they crossed. We know they crossed at Jackson State, but you would have thought they would have crossed at Tennessee State also.
Right. And I mean, those are, I believe, 2 of the 3 schools with the most NFL former NFL alumni. It might be the best.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Does the Tennessee State have the most HBCU national championships?
Ooh, see, don't get me to
I believe Tennessee State is number 1. And while you talk, I'm going to.
I don't know. Grambling. I believe Grambling has 17, if I'm not mistaken. I think Grambling.
I know that. I know they're neck and neck.
I think Grambling has number 1.
But continue on with the discussion, and I'll bring up the stats.
Yeah, so that's week 1. Now, week 2, of course, the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis against Jackson State. Of course, that's neither teams get to break in week 1. Jackson State's playing the division contest on the road in Florida against Florida A&M. Then Jackson State turns around and plays TSU. TSU coming off the Grambling game in Canton, Ohio, and they play that game in Memphis. So that neither team gets a break. Funny thing, Tennessee State has a 9-3 overall record. They lost in 2019. That was the game that was like a 44-49 win for Jackson State. I think we had the opening kickoffs is how that game started. 2 opening kickoff returns for touchdowns is how it started. And it just, doggone nearly 100 points, definitely over 1,000 yards in that contest. Then for Tennessee State, week 3, this is a dangerous game. First home game of the year against Kentucky State. Now, why I call that a dangerous game? Kentucky State
is better than you think.
Oh, they were better than many people thought last year, or I should say 2019, where, had a new coach. They came in. Remember, they beat, not only did they open the season with a win against an FCS team, Robert Morris, they turned around and beat Jackson State a couple of weeks later in the Circle City Classic. Nice. And so that's a Kentucky State team that it'll be interesting to see when we talk to or we hear from them this upcoming week in the SIAC, what the last year has been like for Kentucky State. Because
didn't Kentucky State win one of those games by not even throwing the ball like more than 2 or 3 times the entire game?
Yeah, they were not known for throwing the ball at all. It was really a run offense, and
3 yards in the cloud of dust.
Yeah, they just really were really good defensively too. And so it was a big 180 from what they were in the years leading up to 2019. Yeah. And so there's a lot, I'm sure there will be a lot of excitement for Kentucky State. So that'll be a very important game for Tennessee State to not overlook. And then the only other non-conference game that Tennessee State have is in week 12, the last game of the regular season at Mississippi State. They've never played Mississippi State before, and that's after the conference. The whole conference schedule has been played. Then all of a sudden you got a game against Mississippi State. So that's a real, I don't know how that got scheduled at the end of the season, but that's a paycheck, I guess, right?
Correct.
What's your expectation, or what's the ceiling for Tennessee State, Drew? Is this a team that can finally contend for the OVC? Might we see Tennessee State in the FCS playoffs this year?
Well, I don't know if we're going to see them in the playoffs, but number one, I think that number 5 in the OVC is low. Number 2, according to a statistical ranking system that I've seen, Tennessee State is the top-rated HBCU going into the preseason.
Really?
Yeah, that's their preseason number 1 as far as all the HBCUs.
That'll be interesting conversation for a lot of people.
Yeah, yes, it is. And now the debate has to begin. First of all, while I'm thinking about national championships, in reverse order, 5 through 1. And these are all the national championships based upon being named by, the multiple media outlets, because we just now recently had a true national champion. Southern has 11. First one in 1948, last one in 2003. Tuskegee has 13, their first one being in 1924 and their most recent one in 2016. Grambling has 15, with their first one being in 1955 and their last one being in 2016. Florida A&M has 15 with 19, excuse me, their first one being 1938 and their last one in 2019. And Tennessee State has 16. The first one being in 1946 and their latest one being in 2013. So you've got the number 1 and the number 2 teams in national Black college national champions playing each other week 1.
And they've never played each other.
And they've never played each other.
Yeah, that game is going to be on the NFL Network. And I believe
that was a good pickup.
No, definitely. And it's the same day as the Orange Blossom Classic featuring FAMU and Jackson State. I think it's, or no, is it? Or is it the same day as the, it's either the same day
it's
as
week 0.
Okay, so that puts it, no, it's not week 0. It's week 1.
Week 1.
It's week 1.
Yes, that's the same, that's the same time as the Orange Blossom.
Okay.
And the Labor Day Classic.
Yes. So as a matter of times, it'll be interesting to see what the kickoff times are. I don't have the kickoff time offhand for either available to me, but maybe we'll share that a little bit later on. But it'd be definitely, if you're not traveling to any of those games, you might need a couple of TV sets to watch that game. So that should be interesting. Yeah, I'm in terms of where I think Tennessee State can be, I think their ceiling is 3. I think they could easily contend for 3rd in the OVC. I would like to see them at 3. And you never know. This is the kind of season where if they figure it out with the quarterback position, because they just weren't very efficient from the offense, but you bring in, if Hugh Jackson, who has been a pretty good offensive coach and a pretty good offensive coordinator, if he can develop an offense that utilizes and exploits the talents that Tennessee State has, I really think 3, maybe 2 is not too far from a reality. And then in that case, with the fact that you're in the OVC, who knows? You might very well be able to earn an at-large bid. So if Tennessee State doesn't win the conference outright, they very well may earn an at-large bid.
Now, here's the question. Tennessee State plays 3 HBCUs.
Yep.
They're in a traditional non-HBCU conference.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee State gets 10 wins. We give them 10 wins on this season.
Wow.
I'm just throwing out hypothetical.
Well, I'm listening to your hypothetical like, wow, 10 wins.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You've got a 10-win Tennessee State team and say a 10-win SWAC team, a 10-win BAC team, considering that the BAC only has 6 teams in their conference, and a 10-win team out of the Big South, be it Hampton or A&T.
Wow, that's a great year for HBCUs. Wow.
Who gets the Black College National Championship?
You know what? It's not going to be decided based on regular season, because if I'm basing it off,
obviously you go your Celebration Bowl winner.
Well, but hold on. Let me stop you, because yeah, your Celebration Bowl winner will be in the play, especially if you have a 10-win SWAC and a 10-win MEAC representative. But the X factor, those teams that are in the playoffs, which, assuming if Tennessee State has 10 wins, that you're telling me then they're
probably playoff bound.
Their only loss at that point, Drew, is Mississippi State, because they're only playing 11 games. So that means they were undefeated going into Mississippi State, which means they were probably ranked going into that game, probably as high as top 10 in FCS. I'm just going with your hypothetical.
Let's even say a 9-win.
No, don't change your hypothetical.
Yeah.
Don't change your hypothetical, because you said it, so I'm just giving it to you. 10 wins at that point, plus a 10-win Hampton or A&T, those teams too will be ranked in the top 10. And I'll tell you what, based on how far they go, if those two teams make it into the Elite Eight of the playoffs, I very well might vote them ahead of coming out of the Celebration Bowl winner. I'm just saying. I very well might.
Even though they play and we have to bring this up now. Even though they are an HBCU who plays
I don't care.
Majority of their games against non-HBCU opponents.
I don't care. This isn't a championship of teams that played HBCUs. This is a Black College National Championship. They are a team that is a Black college, an HBCU. We just watched a team from Bluefield State win the Black College World Series, right? I mean, we understand the makeup versus the historical designation of that school. Two different things. Same thing here. And so I think I think it'd be a shame if media start getting into that mode of segregating, whether a team is deserving or not based on something that they can't control, which is they're not in an HBCU conference anymore. That's all I'm saying. So in your case, if 4 teams are going in with 10, there's going to be a split title somewhere. Now, the crazy part is whoever your voters are, they can't split votes. So they're the ones who have the tough call. Those are the ones who are going to have to sort of put their own biases on a shelf, and they're going to have to do some digging into the stats, into the home wins, road game. What's more important, road wins? What's more important, conference wins, conference road wins? You're going to have to look at all that and say what's important. And that might be how you come away with your champion. Just saying. It'll be good talk. Good talk for shows like ours, right?
Definitely. It's going to be
how would you handicap that situation? It sounds like I'm gonna throw your own scenario, or you just threw that at me just to see what I would say, huh?
I mean, it's a tough sell. On one hand, you have to, with it being a Black college national champion, you have to lean and give bonus points to the team that defeats other Black colleges.
Why? Why? Whoa!
Wait, you asked my opinion.
You wouldn't factor in the team that played the tougher opponent?
What? I hadn't got to that part yet.
Okay.
But if any of those teams make a serious playoff run, you have to get at least to the second round. Any of those teams has to at least get to the second round. Those non HBCU division teams, which we have 3 of them, has to at least get to the second round for me to consider putting them in the running and moving them ahead of a Celebration Bowl winner. You have to get at least one playoff win. You can't just show up to the playoffs.
No, I agree with you.
You have to at least get one playoff win, and then I can consider putting you ahead of the Celebration Bowl winner.
That's your postseason, just the same way as the team that wins the Celebration Bowl is the team who gets credit for winning what? The postseason game.
Correct. You have to get that win first. Yeah.
So that is why I say whoever comes out of Celebration Bowl automatically gets the look ahead. But then, what I like about
actually the Celebration Bowl winner will get the last chance to impress.
That's true because the playoffs would have already started, and there might be a team,
unless they're in the championship game
or still playing, because that weekend might very well be a
that's usually a semifinal
game. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be that. Now there's your debate around Celebration Bowl weekend. If that happens, and say you had 2 teams who won a game or 2 in the playoffs, and then you have the Celebration Bowl. Yeah, I want to see how the spin is going to be that weekend. That's where your real interest will come right there. Yeah. All right, Drew, let's take a break, because when we come back, we got a lot to talk about as it relates to the SWAC and then talking about the CIAA. So let's take a quick timeout. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap with Bryan and A.D. We'll be back right after these words.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Bryan, A.D, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and A.D here, and we want to transition into talking about the SWAC, who had their media day. So we're going to get into talking a little bit about the SWAC, and then we'll also get into talking about the CIAA as well. Obviously, plenty of news and notes that we can go through. Let's start, Drew, with the and obviously with the fact I was there, you weren't there. Let's maybe for me, why don't you bullet point before we get into talking about the various topics and things that came out of it. Why don't you maybe bullet point some of the things as you watched our coverage and what you heard? What were some of the things that stood out about SWAC Media Day for you from your angle?
First of all, the first interview Dr. Cavill had with Commissioner Charles McClellan, you know, that was
I was there too. Now, come on now.
Yes, you were there.
Damn.
You and
I'm messing.
You made me lose my train of thought.
I just like
the reason I brought up.
Go ahead.
Dr. Cavill.
Yeah.
Was because you could tell they were colleagues and they are more than just professionals by the way that interview was, and you were really the outsider on the interview. You was trying to stay professional, but even you realize it's best if I get out the way of this interview and let them two talk to each other.
Yeah, I wonder how that came across, because they were like two kids who like had been in high school or elementary and had talked about, like, in the back seat of somebody's car on a long road trip. They talked about this dream, and you could tell I could see the that look of, man, I can't believe we made it. I can't believe we're here. And there was
you remember that crazy idea we had, blah blah blah,
yes,
blah, blah.
Yes.
You know, Bryan, and I'll equate this.
I brought that up I don't know if you caught that. I brought that up.
Yeah.
And I asked them, where did that happen? I think one of them said it happened sort of on a plane.
And then when they brought up something happening at some party, some discussion they had at some party also.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that was such a genuine, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a very cool moment. And I think being there, I could sense that. I'm glad it came through on the television end.
Yeah. And you know something, I'm gonna tell you what it reminds me of. It kind of reminds me when you and Roy get together and talk about the origin of Jericho and the BCSN.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you two were there at the beginning. You know,
Yes.
y'all, your concept and how y'all went through and scheming this and planning that, and and how it's come together. If you look at it, and I'm on the outside looking in both of these conversations, it's the same thing I see when you and our CEO Roy get together.
I get you. That's why I said I sensed that from them as they started going down that road, and that's why I kind of asked Dr. McClellan the question I did. I was like, where did that crazy idea that this one day was going to be a reality? Where was that conversation at? You know, so it was kind of cool that's and I'll tell you, that's the one thing about these moments when you get interviews and you're able to see someone like Dr. McClellan. And he even, he really, I thought, had a great time walking around, interact. I know he came around one other time when Connell Maynard was doing his press conference, or his interview with Doc and the crew, and he just kind of butted in and said something like, "Don't believe anything this guy says," or something. I mean, Dr. McClellan really looked like he was having a great time walking around, just soaking up that just everything that the media was really enjoying, talking to the coaches and the players. I really felt like it was a proud moment. Like,
from where I was at, it was one of those. Yeah, I put this thing together. It's finally come together. That monkey is off of my back. I'm very confident in what I've done, and this is going to go right, but I'm not cocky with it. And that was kind of where he's very confident, but he's not braggadocious.
I just think
it's a good. He's a matter of fact. He speaks about the facts. His record is what his record is, and thus far, his record has been good. Yeah. And he could be a lot bolder and brash, like a lot of people that we know, but that's not his stilo. It seems like, but he does know how to absorb it, deflects it to other people when necessary, because it's never I. No, it's we, it's us, it's Dr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so over here. And he knows how to play the media.
Well,
I will give him that.
Good leaders know that it's not them, it's the group of people around him that make the thing happen. And that goes from whether it's you planning a party versus it to such a major event like this. I mean, if you've ever planned a successful party or an event, I bet you didn't do everything by yourself.
No. You
put
people in place and put them in a position so that they can handle what they handle.
Exactly. Yeah. And you get the right people and you trust them to do their job. You let them know what you want, what the expectation is, and you find people who can make that happen.
If you're good at coordinating transportation, I am not fit to have you in the hall putting up decorations.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how bad you want to, because the real leader wants to do it, but having a good staff is somebody coming by and say, "Hey man, I'll take care of that. I'm sure you got something better you need to be doing. Go do that. I'll handle this." That's when you know you have a good staff. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what that look was. It's like if you had a party in a big event, you just walk around and see how everybody else is enjoying it. I mean, because that's the satisfaction you get of seeing other people enjoy your party.
More champagne. More champagne.
Yeah, it's not that it's not that the party. It's not that the party that is going off. It's just that you enjoy seeing other people enjoying themselves, and so seeing all of the teams reaping the benefits of the hard work that they all put, everybody all working together makes happen. So that was cool. What else did you see?
But moving on, obviously the interview of the day with Coach Prime, and I don't know where in the timeline our interview with Coach Prime was compared to the infamous interview with Coach Prime, because if our interview occurred after that incident, our guys did even a better job than I thought when they did the interview, considering a man's coming out of this, in his opinion, a screwed up interview that he didn't want to be in, and then you come over to our guys. But that also goes to show that the relationship that we have with some of our universities, and the relationship that Neely and Charles has with the brass at Jackson State University, because they have access to things, they're able to get more things, get certain things from Jackson State that even you and I, even though we're part of the same network, we can't get certain access to them. So they did a great job setting up their stuff and conducting a real interview. This wasn't coach speak. They knew which questions to ask. They knew what questions not to ask.
If you heard what Dion said in that, Coach Prime, if you heard what he said in there in that interview,
don't call him Coach D. Don't call him Dion.
I said Coach Prime, Coach
okay.
Dion Sanders. They have such an inside with him that he even said, "I'm gonna have people come to you because you all know." That's how inside they are. They've built up such a good relationship with him. I think Neely even told me this was like the night before, or maybe the day before, or just somewhere off to the side. Coach will call him at all kinds of times with ideas. Hey, I want to do this. Let's do this. And so they've really come through in building that relationship with him. And it's going to spread out into the other programs because, one, they really love Jackson State, and they really love and I think having the accessibility to him makes it accessible for other programs to want to come on, because they know it's, if outside entities want to get info about Jackson State football, they don't have to go to Neely and Bishop, the pregame show, right? Because those guys are going to know. So that was one thing that I thought was really telling about the relationship they've been able to form. Now, let me go back to what you earlier asked about where Coach Prime was in the timeline of that whole incident. And this didn't come out until later that evening. And I mentioned it in the article or the column that I wrote. When that virtual press conference happened, and when the reporter from the Clarion Legend did what he did, Dion walked and did what he did. Now, two things. One, that presser was probably about 6 or 7 minutes in from what I was told. So really there was only a 10-minute window. So it was getting towards the end of that presser. But when he left, you saw that reports where Dion left the media day, right? That wasn't true at all, because where he went was into the next room where radio interviews were. And he sat down with Charles Edmond of 91.7 FM, Lorman, Mississippi, Alcorn State Radio. That's where he went next. And the only reason he went there next is because Charles's next scheduled interview was supposed to be Broderick Fobbs, but Fobbs ended up having a phone call that took him away. And so there was an open spot. Coach Sanders went and sat down. So if you go and listen, and I think I put a link, if you listen, Coach Sanders mentions that when he first talked to Edmond and said, hey, thank you for calling me Coach Sanders. I just came out of a situation. Nobody wanted to call. He didn't know. Charles didn't know what was going on. All he knew was he's talking to Coach Sanders. I'm talking to Coach Sanders. So then from there, Coach Sanders went from there. That's when he came over and did live TV with the pregame show. So that was, it was kind of nice to be able to put to record what truly happened, in that, no, Deion Sanders did not walk out after the presser, after the virtual press conference. He went over to talk to Charles Edmond, and then B, did a live television. Now, obviously, if you don't care about all that, okay, But the truth is what the truth is.
So he walked away from Main Street media. He walked out on Main Street media, but still kept his obligations to HBCU media, is what it sounded like.
If you want to say it that way, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who was on the virtual press conference, but yeah, he was talking to quote unquote mainstream reporter from the Clarion Ledger.
And I don't think it came out clearly that he walked away from a virtual interview.
Yes, it did not.
If he walks away from a virtual interview, it does appear like he walked out of media day, when in actuality, he just left that station and went to another station.
And see, if nobody knew what the setup was, and again, the setup is they had the main room with the stage for ESPN3. Then they had two separate rooms for radio, live radio or recorded radio. And then they also had a television room for taped and live interviews. And that's where we were, along with HBCU Game Day, some other people, television stations who were doing their one-offs. And also, that is where the virtual media setup was, which is where Dion was when that incident occurred.
All right. So moving on, we beat that horse to death. Moving on, a couple of other highlights. I liked the interview you did with Donahue Ely of Alabama State. Of course, Connell Maynor is Connell Maynor. You knew. Surprised we did not get any bulletin board material from him though. He gave a good interview, but no bulletin board material this time, in my opinion.
He didn't give any bulletin board material, but here's one thing that I think people are sleeping on, and I can't remember where I heard this, so I don't want to take credit for this, but if you paid attention to, he even recognized the one area of improvement for his team this year is the defensive side of the ball, right? We all know that.
Correct.
The person who is now his new defensive coordinator, Keenis Bullware, the same DC he had with him at Winston-Salem State, when they did damage there. So it should be noted, and they got some good guys. At least we think they're going to be good. You got some guys from the transfer portal on the defensive side of the ball to come to A&M. If the defense can be half as good or half as improved as what they were, and they weren't too shabby in the spring, but there's always room for improvement. Even if half the improvement from 2019 will speak volumes for this team, it'll give the offense that much more room they need to be able to average 32, 35 points a game if they get back up to where they were in 2019.
I'll bring up one other thing about Alabama A&M, and I'm surprised no one really brought it out. Their offensive line was not the best that I've seen at Alabama A&M, and could have done a little bit of a better job as far as keeping the Quail Glass upright. They get just that much more improvement in the offensive line, because he was sacked about three times a game. Mm-hmm. If I remember the stats off the top of my head, I'm just going off the top of my head. If you could cut that down and cut down the pressure on him and give him even more time, oh my God, what can he do?
Think about this little stat from out of the spring as it relates to Quail Glass. In 2019, his touchdown to interception ratio was about 3-1. 33 or 32 to 11, I think is what it was. That's almost about 3-1. He threw though for about 60% completion percentage, right?
Correct.
Now in the spring, he made a big improvement in the touchdown to INT ratio. It was 4-1. But the completion percentages, though, went down to about 57%. So I don't know what you value. and you know, do you value a better touchdown to INT ratio versus the completion percentage, or do you take the completion percentage in the 60s but have the lower touchdown to INT ratio? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he does, and he being a Quill Glass, what he does this upcoming fall, because that's a big point of emphasis, I think, that I saw from the fall to the spring season.
Definitely. And like I say, you know, the whole thing, it was, you know, eventful. And probably my favorite part of the day were the last two segments. The first one with Jay Walker coming in.
Oh, talking with the pregame show, right?
Yes, with the pregame show, and then the one that you did at the end with all the different members of the media.
Yeah, we did two different media roundups, and Tiffany Green
is just,
I can't speak to how cool that was, because like they just did kind of a one-on-one with Jay, but I kind of knew where we were with our time, and I didn't want to keep. I wanted Keisha Kelly in there, and I wanted some other people, and I didn't want
Bo Carter in there with you.
Yeah, I didn't want to keep people longer because we were already at the point where they were starting to break down in the main room. I mean, they were breaking down. A lot of people had left. So
Yeah.
Tiffany was like one of the last people there. So she came over, and it was great to do that. And she was so cool. The fact that we had Neely, Keisha, and Jamie, that was so cool to have that moment, to be able to just kind of bounce off ideas and the love and respect for the different levels of journalism and broadcast journalism, and just all of us in this space of doing what we do. That was so awesome to me. That was the moment right there when I was like, yo, I'm hoping people really appreciate this. And then to kind of come in there later when I had Charles, Luke Williams, Mo Carter, those were veterans. I mean, those guys, especially when we got Luke and Charles there. I mean, those guys have been doing it since the 80s, bro. I mean, we were in high school when they were putting out.
We weren't in high school.
Well, we were going into high school when they were getting into and do. I mean, like I said, the Black College Sports Page, 25 years plus. Charles has been at Alcorn since the mid 80s. I mean, you know, Mo was playing football in the late 90s at Southern. So I mean, I was humbled, and it felt really good to be able to
and my brother, you do what you do best. You did a good job conducting the ship and leading those interviews, in my opinion.
I appreciate
that is it. You are the voice of the Black College Sports Network for a reason, and you showed it during those interviews.
Well, I mean, look, that's fun, man. I think I still haven't been able to get all of those interviews chopped up and put on social media. The fun part was we got to the end and we were talking bold predictions. So I don't know if you caught that segment. You know, it's kind of fun hearing bold predictions. And what'd you make of my bold prediction? I don't know. Did you catch my bold predictions on the classic?
I caught it, but you got to refresh my memory because it's been a little bit over a week since we've seen it.
So like my bold predictions for the conference, and it had to do with the Magic City Classic.
It was the Magic City Classic, the Florida Classic, and the Bayou Classic or something.
Right? Been dominated recently, or even won most recently by A&M, Southern, and Bethune, right?
Correct.
I have a complete switch on all three.
Yeah.
I got Alabama State winning, I've got Grambling winning, and I got Florida A&M winning this year. All three. And because of that, it has an impact on the actual outcome of the SWAC East, because I think Alabama State beating A&M takes Alabama A&M's chance of winning away, and FAMU winning gives FAMU that opportunity to go to the Celebration Bowl. And Grambling has a season that many people, I think if we looked at predictions, I had Grambling ranked higher than most people. I had them ranked second because of winning that game against Southern at the end of the year.
Right.
So,
well, since we're talking bold predictions, do you want me to give mine, or do you want to wait till after this break?
so we want to take a break. Yeah, let's take a break and kind of come back. Let's go back because I know there's a few other interesting notes to come out of SWAC Media Day. We can get into the predictions and things like that. So let's take a short break. Come back with a little bit more. You're watching a BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back right after these words.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and
Send it to you. Would you be? Oh, we're back.
antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
This is Carlos Brown, letting you know that we're on the move. You can now catch the Carlos Brown Show beginning this July on the Black College Sports Network each and every Saturday from 11 to 1 Eastern Time. That's 10 to 12 Central Time. Same time, new place. On Facebook at the Carlos Brown Show and Black College Sports Network. Online at www.mybcsn.net and on the BCSN app available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and Drew here, and we were in the middle of our discussion about the SWAC Media Day, some of Drew's observations that he saw. I want to add on a couple things, Drew, before we kind of look at predictions and what the results were. Just some general notes. I thought I'm going to go for a second back to Jackson State. And I think one of the interesting things that has come out in the day or two since the media day were some comments made by Shedeur Sanders. And these were comments that he made during his stand-up interview with HBCU Game Day. And obviously you can go see this for yourself, but I'm going to just read some quotes because the quotes are already starting to get some attention, especially from Rattler Nation, FAMU folks who are already chomping at the bit, as they're playing Jackson State first. So the quotes are from Shedeur, and I want you to remember he has not played a game yet. Hasn't taken. It's rather rare to see. I had asked a lot of people. I said, "When's the last time you've seen a freshman at media day?" And I don't think too many people were. I think people may have referenced one other person, but most people couldn't recall the last time a freshman had been at media day. So he says, Shedeur does. He says, quote, "We're very different. The offense, receivers, O-line, it's a whole different team. You can't really compare us to the old JSU. We're the new JSU." He went on to refer to JSU's defense as an SEC defense, given that there are several Power 5 transfers on both sides of the ball. All right. He went on to say he wanted to make, and this is the part I think that gets people riled up. When asked how success against his own defense would translate against SWAC teams, Sanders said it equates to a blowout. You got to understand. Y'all really don't understand. It's players that have a different caliber of talent that all came to JSU. So it's like when you compare us to a regular SWAC team, a different SWAC team, the best, we didn't come here because we had to. We come here because we chose to. It's a difference. Whew. Wow. I mean, there's other stuff here, but I think that right there, you can go to HBCU game day and I'm sure read the rest of that or hear the rest of that. But Drew, what are your thoughts when I think had Coach Sanders thing not happened, that would be the lead story. And it already has, because it's been catching attention over the last 48 hours.
He's definitely his daddy's child.
Well said.
The confidence that he speaks with, you have to grow up in that type of confidence.
Yes, you have to grow up in it to understand.
You have to grow up in it to understand it. And he thinks there's nothing wrong with that, which is fine. That's who he is. So
is he lying?
On paper, he may be correct. You've got a lot of SEC transfers.
Right.
But let's keep in mind, these people transfer for a reason.
True.
And you're not getting 5-star SEC players. You're getting 2s, 3s, and a sprinkle of 4s.
No, they're getting mostly 4s, weren't they?
But wait, some of them been 3s. A lot of them have been 3s. But guess what? So is FAMU. So is Southern. Everybody's getting a sprinkle of it. The biggest thing with Jackson State to me is the roster turnover and how quickly or how long will it take for them to blend? Just because you have a talented team on paper does not mean you will get a W.
You're right.
We've seen it. How long did it? Let's go back to the Miami Heat back when LeBron and Bosh and Wade came together. How long did it take for them to jail? They did not win a championship that first year.
Right.
Just some things to think about.
But I think in this respect, though, if you believe that the best of the best get recruited by SEC schools, so that instantly already puts you in an evaluation level, maybe a step in front of some other people. Okay. And I'm just saying, if you believe that, and there are a lot of people who do, then instantly when you say things that says we're playing an SEC defense. I mean, he went on to say we have a cornerback that was supposed to be at Georgia, another one that was at Florida State, another one that was at the University of Florida, another one that was at South Carolina. So what he's telling you is we have guys who were, now those guys have to do their job. Yeah, they were evaluated and supposed to be better. And so I guess what you could maybe draw from that, Drew, maybe where I'm trying to say is if all 10 or 11 of those guys understand, because they've been in it and they know that the pressure cooker is different, that when the light comes on, it's time to perform at a higher level. See, I remember I heard Deion say that there were certain guys within the program, when it was time to turn on and turn it up a notch, they didn't know how to do that because they'd never done it before. They weren't that high level guy or whatever. Well, now you got guys who understand what Deion's talking about when he's saying it's time to put your big boy pants on and really turn up a notch. They know what that means because they've been there. Those are kids who've been in the practices and been on the field and competed, or they've been on the sideline and seen what it's like when coach says turn it up a notch because you're playing the best. So it's like everybody comes together at the same time. I don't know how true that, I don't know how organically that can be drawn or sewn together, but I think that's what he's talking about. I just think the line that gets me is he says, we didn't come here because we had to. We came here because we chose to. That's the line I think that's going to piss people off. What do you think?
I agree with him. You know, for so long, HBCUs have been, you couldn't play anywhere else. So let me go back to an HBCU because I can always get an HBCU. Now, HBCU, a lot of these kids' first choice. And that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing that people are considering HBCUs first. But let's keep something in mind. Shedeur Sanders is a true freshman. Yes, his dad has played for 50, 60, 70,000. But the most Shedeur Sanders has probably played before is 1,500, 2,000 people. When you step into Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida, and there are 50,000 people in that stadium, 30,000 of them probably in green and orange.
Yeah.
How are you going to react?
I agree.
We know what your dad would do. We know what your older brother would do because he's played at that level.
Mm-hmm.
What will you do?
Right. And that's the thing. That's the thing. So, and you know, I think they
and I hope it's not a deer in headlight. I hope he really does live up to the hype.
Well, yeah, I hope he has a quick release and quick feet because that's going to be the key. And I think the realist of Jackson State fans, there are some out there, despite what a lot of us think, there are some that understand that is sort of the limitation that this team will have to deal with this year is the fact that they do have a freshman, and it may take him mid-season before he starts to look comfortable. Or what do they say, before the game slows down? But I'll tell you what, if he comes out and looks really good in the first couple weeks, that tells you that who he has been practicing against really is a top-notch group of guys because they've helped him get comfortable because of the pressure that they've been putting on him in practice. Right?
Great. Now, here's the question I've got. Will Daddy pull him? And what will be the reaction when Daddy pulls him? And who's the backup quarterback for when Daddy pulls him?
Well, you know, look, I don't. At some point when you're not getting it done, I think Sanders will pull his son. I think he'll be back starting next week. I mean, if you're not making the right reads and you make 3 or 4 consecutive bad plays and bad drives, there's an adjustment that'll have to get made. And I don't think Sanders will not make it at the sacrifice of his own son. I think his own son understands that if I'm not playing well, I'm not going to be out there long. So that's another thing that the high level elite players understand that. If they're not playing well, they're not going to be out there long. Right?
Correct.
They get it. So, all right, moving off of Jackson State. How about Grambling for a second? Now, Grambling's an interesting case because Coach Fobbs, when they initially had the coaches called at the beginning of the media day event, this is something you had to be in the room to hear. They went alphabetical order, or at least from east to west, in order of calling everybody up by school. And the coaches came up and they took a nice photo. Well, guess who got skipped over when they went through starting with the West teams? They skipped over to G. After they went to Alcorn, they skipped over Grambling and went right to the next letter. And then realized as they got to the end, oh, sorry, Coach Fobbs, Grambling. So I caught it and I was like, ooh. I was like, how do you forget Grambling? How does the SWAC forget Grambling? I mean, that's one of your blue blood programs, right? I mean, next to Prairie View, Southern,
Jackson State.
I mean, that's it. That's your blue bloods. You're not supposed to forget the G. They did. And so it's funny, I was listening to the interview with Charles Edmond that he did, and Coach Fobbs, which I'm a firm believer, Grambling's gonna fix it. You have to. A lot of people are down on Grambling after what happened in the spring. Yes, they blew up a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball, but the defense was still pretty good. I mean, short of that game in the Bayou Classic or whatever that was against Southern.
Bayou Fiasco.
Bayou Fiasco. That team traditionally is pretty good on that side of the ball, right? That will get fixed. That'll get fixed. But I think all of those little things add up, and it sounds like he's got a quarterback. Elijah Walker, who was one of obviously he and Jeremy Hickbottom played in the spring. Hickbottom ended up transferring. Now, Hickbottom, of course, the 2 previous years was a good quarterback for Grambling. I mean, many people thought, Hickbottom going into this year, if we would have played a full year, was going to be one of the leading quarterbacks in the conference. And, so for Hickbottom to transfer somewhere in the middle of the season or to lead the team and then later transfer out, presumably we thought
it was right around the COVID stuff.
Yeah, he supposedly was going to Bethune-Cookman, but I don't know if he ended up at Bethune-Cookman. I don't know. That's where originally we saw that he was supposed to go, but I haven't seen anything yet. It's one of those things we'll have to kind of pay attention to. But in listening to the interview, Fobbs really likes what Walker brings. He's a transfer from Louisiana Tech, also went to Hines Community College. He really likes the poise and the leadership that Walker has shown. And so I think that is who's going to be leading Grambling. And it'll be interesting to watch Grambling this season. I do not think they will be as low as many people thought or think of them as. 2 other teams that I think are going to be, obviously the UAPB disrespect is going to be a big story. Obviously, they weren't picked very high in the preseason rankings for the conference. They were actually picked 5th in the SWAC West. They won the West last year, picked 5th preseason. So that's very shocking. So that had a lot of people floored. Trust me, had a lot of people floored. And I think the other team, preseason pick number 5, Bethune-Cookman. A lot of people don't know what Bethune-Cookman's walking into the season with, but I'll tell you, Bethune-Cookman walked into the building, and I want to get the guys' names right, and I wrote them down because they were two of the biggest dudes that were there. Linebacker Ontario Johnson and tight end Taryn Mallard. And Drew, both of those brothers were at least 6'5" and 6'6". I couldn't tell you which one's the linebacker and which one the tight end. I think the tight end was the 6'6" guy and the linebacker was 6'5". I think. But let me just say, those two guys, if that's why Sims brought them, okay, I understand why you brought them to, because that was a check moment around the room to say, look at your guys, look at my guys. You guys got us ranked 5th. Okay, you go ahead and do that. And all Terry Sims has done: 2019, 7-4, 5-3 in the conference. 2018, 7-5, 5-2 in the conference. 2017, 7-4, 6-2 in the conference. Bethune plays a very competitive, tough non-conference schedule. Guess who one of those 2 wins are in the non-conference have been against? SWAC teams. And then
they played Valley a couple years ago, didn't they?
And they played Jackson State too. They played a SWAC team, I think, every year during Sims's last 3 to 4 seasons. But this team is usually 3-2 losses. They finished 500 back in 2016 in conference. They're not used to being in conference and finishing less than 500. And so be very aware of what Bethune and Arkansas Pine Bluff bring to the table. Well, you brought up an interesting thing that I slept on about Alcorn State. What was that?
Because of the sanction or penalty for them pulling out of the SWAC schedule so late after the schedule had already been set to all the teams, the penalty that the conference set for them is any place that they were supposed to go to last year, they have to go there this year if they happen to fall on the schedule. The next, they have to return that home game that they were supposed to have last year. So, for instance, I believe Alcorn was scheduled to go to Jackson State last year. That game is now in Jackson this year, whereas originally with the master schedule, that game would have been in Alcorn.
It would have been a home game in Lorman.
Yeah, it would have been in Lorman.
Yep. But now,
so if you look at Alcorn's schedule from last year, the games that they were supposed to be on the road, those games are now home games either next year or the next time that they're supposed to play that particular team. Because I believe A&M, they were supposed to play A&M, but A&M is not on their schedule this year. So next time they play A&M, that game will be at A&M.
So essentially, Alcorn
has two home conference games.
Right. 3 home games overall.
Yes.
And they have the one neutral site game at the beginning of the year in Atlanta. But everything else on the road at South Alabama. Then they get into, as you point out, Drew, 6 road conference games, 4 of them in a row. Between the Grambling State game and Prairie View, which are their 2 conference homes, they got 4 road games. Now, honestly,
I don't think people, when they were giving their predictions for the SWAC West, took that into consideration.
You're right. You're right. I mean, you can look at our own predicted order of finish there. Now, before you, well, you can leave that up there. Let me give the official predictions in the West. So according to the SIDs and the people who vote, the predicted order of finish for the SWAC, you've got Texas Southern at the bottom at 6, UAPB at 5, Prairie View at 4, Grambling at 3, Southern at 2, Alcorn at 1. Now, when you look at our predicted order of finish, you know, in comparison to that, you know, I think outside of, you know, BJ Jones and myself there, the only two who picked Alcorn, it looks like everybody else picked Southern. Now, and I understand that because it was a tough pick for me because Southern actually, you know, when I broke down the entire season, I actually have Alcorn losing to Southern on the road. But I think Southern is a ready-made team in many people's eyes to win the West. As you can see, in second place for me, I've got Grambling. Again, that's based on my bold prediction that Grambling will beat Southern in the Bayou Classic. You can see Dr. Cavill with Prairie View A&M, one of the few people who actually, what's funny is me and Doc vary on Prairie View and Grambling. Most everybody thinks Grambling is going to be second worst, whereas Doc thinks, or where I have Grambling high, and then Doc is very high on Prairie View A&M.
You're the only one who put Grambling that high.
I am, yeah, that's really high, you know. But again, I'm trusting in Fobs. My statement was, give me the T-shirt. I trust in Fobs. You know, that I'm telling you, I think he's gonna get it done this year, or at least deserves the chance to get them back to a. Let me see, what's the record I have for Grambling this year? I have Grambling finishing 5-3 in the conference, finishing 5-3. You know. And winning the tiebreaker against Southern. So what's your predicted order of finish in the West, Drew?
Now, of course, the graphic I has is for both sides, so you can go ahead and criticize me on both sides of the bracket.
All right, well, we're going to start with the West. So on the West, let's see, you've got Southern, Prairie View, Alcorn finishing third, UAPB, Grambling, and Texas Southern. So you sort of fall in line with Dr. Cavill, it seems like, where you think real highly of Prairie View A&M and not so much about Grambling. You've got UAPB in the middle of the pack. Yeah, you almost have the same Western Conference picks with Doc there.
Yes, we almost
yeah, you guys are practically step with each other. All right. What is it about Prairie View that you like about Prairie View?
Well, I like the schedule.
Okay.
I like their schedule. Looking at Prairie View's schedule,
I'm gonna pull it up right here with you. I got it.
Yeah, they have.
They start on the road at Texas Southern. That's a neutral site in Houston. And then they've got at Incarnate Word, host Houston Baptist, and that's all in the month of September.
Prairie View has been a quarterback away from competing over the last couple of years. They went out, they've got some stuff in the portal, and I just have this funny feeling that, look, somebody who we think is going to be good is not going to be good this year. Somebody who we think is going to be bad is going to be good. There's too much parity in the SWAC on both sides of the spectrum. So looking at the schedule, looking at a few other things, I took a flyer with Prairie View. Alcorn, because of that schedule, I cannot pick them any higher than 3.
But Drew, when you look at Alcorn's schedule, two of those road games are at Mississippi Valley State, at Texas Southern.
Okay, I've got Alcorn with 5 victories
in conference.
Yes, I've got them 5-3 in conference.
All right,
tied with Prairie View at 5-3.
Okay,
with Prairie View having the head-to-head, which is why I have them in second place.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's senior night. That's senior night in Alcorn, and Prairie View beats Alcorn
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you have that thought.
I've got Southern at 7-1, UAPB at 4-4, Grambling at 3-5, and Texas Southern at 2-6. No one will go under. Here's my bold prediction. No one will go undefeated. No one will go winless in the SWAC on either side.
I think saying no one will go winless is probably bolder than no one will go unbeaten. I can't see anyone. I think it'd be amazing if somebody went unbeaten. I'm looking at that team in the running for the Black College National Championship. Anybody who goes unbeaten.
Yeah, but no one will go winless either.
Okay.
That's my bold prediction.
That's
there will be no zeros.
That's a good one.
At the end on anybody's record at the end of the year.
Here's what's interesting about Prairie View, right? And this is the now 4th year for Coach Dooley, right? 13-12 overall record. His first 2 years, they had a dynamic offense. I went back and looked at the stats. That offense back in 2019 led the conference, averaging 35.3 a game. In those first 2 years, not only did he have an outstanding running back in DeWanye Tucker, I thought he had a pro quarterback in Jalen Morton who was very underrated. I mean, he had a great quarterback, running back combination. Okay. Defense took some hits, weren't as strong and dominant as they looked this past spring. I'm just looking at what they did in the spring. A 1-point win over Texas Southern, 7-point win against Grambling. Then they had games against A&M, Southern canceled. Then had to play at UAPB, lost by 5 points. Had the game against Jackson State canceled. They really, I mean, I think had they beaten Arkansas Pine Bluff, I think Prairie View might have ended up in the SWAC championship game had they won that game against UAPB. It was that close.
Yes.
So,
but they also could not participate in the championship game because of the sanctions. They were on probation.
Oh, see, okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
So look, I think I'm not gonna say Eric Dooley's on the hot seat. I mean, but this is a program that has been about 500 in the 3 seasons he's been there. They could really, if they finish 5-3 and maybe win 7-8 games this year, I think it'd be a great season for Prairie View.
Yeah.
You know, I think, but I worry about where things will go and how long people will still be, you know, enamored with the well-dressed Coach Dooley if they finish 6-5, 5-6. You know what I'm saying? I think winning 8 games this year is like the standard or the bar that I think this team should be able to. Now, like you said, they got a returning quarterback coming, running back coming. Defense is still good. I mean, the young men that he had with him are 2 outstanding defensive players. Prairie View is really going to be in the hunt this upcoming year. And I think that's going to be a team that people need to watch out for.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the East.
All right. So over on the East, the official breakdown for the East, Mississippi Valley State's in last. I mentioned Bethune-Cookman 5th, Alabama State just 5 votes ahead of them in 4th. Jackson State really just 4 votes ahead of Alabama State in 3rd. I thought that was the most surprising given the number of votes. Florida A&M comes in at 2nd. Alabama A&M picked 1st. Okay, so that was the official. What did our crew, if you go back and look at our crew from Carlos Jones, far left, BJ Jones, myself, we all picked A&M to finish ahead.
Charles Bishop is the homer.
Dr. Cavill sees Alabama A&M. Charles Bishop stays on script with Jackson State. Mike Washington even came over to the FAMU side. You know, when I put this out, you know, I got so much flack from Mike Washington, and then he picks FAMU. So it's funny. I think he was more upset about where I had Prairie View A&M than anything else. Yeah, so So a lot based on that prediction, I think a lot of people think Florida A&M is going to beat Jackson State in maybe with the exception of Charles. People think A&M is going to beat Jackson State. What's your predicted order, Drew?
Here we go.
All right. So Drew over in the East has Alabama A&M. Surprising, Alabama State coming in second, Florida A&M third, Jackson State fourth, Bethune fifth, Valley sixth. Why Alabama State so high? Why are you so high on Alabama State, Drew?
They have a favorable schedule.
Okay, talk about it.
They have a very favorable schedule. They have. Let me find Alabama State on my matrix because. It's got Texas Southern at home. They've got UAPB at home. Of course, they have the Magic City Classic. They've got Bethune at home also. So they've got some tough road games in there. They've got FAMU, JSU on the road. They've got Valley on the road, and then they've got Prairie View on the road. I can see them going 6-2. And here's the interesting thing. I actually have them and A&M tied at 6-2.
Wow.
I think, and I might be getting crazy with this. Alabama State will beat A&M in the Magic City.
Okay. So I don't feel like I'm so alone out there. Okay.
No, but Alabama A&M will lose to FAMU and I mean I think A&M is going to lose to FAMU and Jackson State this year.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna stay with my Alabama State for a second. I think Alabama State has one of the more intriguing non-conference schedules. And I can see why you like what you like, when it comes to, if you like them in the Magic City Classic, at the end of the season, they've got Texas Southern and Mississippi Valley State on the schedule. But I tell you, Alabama State starts the season against Miles. That's an in-state contest that
Alabama State will win the state of Alabama.
I can't guarantee that. I think and what you're saying is they start the season against Miles, end the season against Tuskegee. I can't guarantee
A&M in the middle.
They play they play A&M in the middle. They also play at Auburn. I'm not really sure.
3-1 in the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Alabama State wins both of those games against those SIAC teams from Alabama. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Miles will be and this is tough for me to say as a Tuskegee alum, because the two schools we do not like are Alabama State and Miles. But Miles will be the tougher of the two opponents for Alabama State, despite it being Turkey Day.
Yeah.
And when we go back to this, you've got to remember that Turkey Day, Tuskegee has gotten out of the Turkey Day tradition, whereas Alabama State is still in it. So this first year back in Turkey Day, I'm favoring Alabama State.
I want to take for a quick hot second as I'm looking at scheduling here. So your final again, you've got Southern Alabama A&M in the SWAC championship game. I've got Alcorn FAMU. Non-conference speaking, South Carolina State plays 3 SWAC teams this year. When we talk about
my fault.
When we talk about big picture,
if you get a team if you get one of the Georgia teams to move up,
Stop it.
I'm pure speculation. Just
where I was going here before Drew started speculating about stuff like that. South Carolina State is an interesting team to keep an eye on as it relates to the Black College National Championship race. The fact that they opened the season against Alabama A&M, and that game they will have payback on their mind because South Carolina State got embarrassed, and A&M talked all kinds of junk on their turf. So if South Carolina State, who should show up with a pretty good defensive team, that'll be interesting, that contest, week 1. But then also South Carolina State has a pair of back-to-back matchups against old MEAC rivals, against Bethune in week 5, first week October, and then home against FAMU, second week of October. Any number of victories, I think if somehow Alabama or South Carolina State somehow wins, I'm just gonna say, if they win all 3 or come out 2-1, along with winning the MEAC, maybe even going unbeaten in the MEAC, South Carolina State is going to be on people's tongues about a Black College National Championship team because, again, they're playing A&M, FAMU, 2 of the favorites in the East, and then Bethune.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Bethune beat South Carolina State during the 19 season? I know FAMU beat them.
Oh, I can't remember. Wait a minute. Who beat who?
I know FAMU beat South Carolina State that year.
And then I think South Carolina State beat Bethune.
South Carolina State beat Bethune.
I think that's how it went. Yeah.
Because I know it was crazy coming down to the end. You had four teams who could possibly win it, and every game mattered during the last weekend.
Right. All right. So,
but yes, it's South Carolina State. Even though we haven't gotten to the MEAC, but I'll go ahead and say this: the MEAC is South Carolina State's to lose.
I disagree. We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that during the MEAC show.
Right. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, let's close the book there on the SWAC, and let's move over to the CIAA very quickly. They too had their preseason. Now, this is a conference that, look, they did not play the whole year, so really, a lot of the suspense about who's done what, we haven't heard anything from these schools because many of these schools did not play any games. So a lot of the guys that were on the all-conference were standouts in 2019. Names such as quarterback Jerome Johnson of Bowie State. And let's not forget, Bowie State finished 11-0 last year. They were our small school Black College National Champion in 2019. Their only loss of the season came in the first round of the playoffs. Okay, it was a shocker, no doubt, but they lost that game. Had a heck of a squad, so they'll go into this season really with a regular season unbeaten streak. But Jerome Johnson, quarterback, some other names, running backs: Deshaun Wethington of Shawan, Sidney Gibbs of Shaw, part of the all-conference team. Those are 2 big names. How about Amik Watkins of Shawan? Charles Hall, Virginia Union, two guys who had big time numbers last year. Defensively, Bowie State has a host of guys who really, I mean, when you talk about a Bowie State that could be playing against teams in the MEAC and the SWAC and holding their own, it's because of guys like Joshua Pryor, who definitely is an all defense. I mean, in terms of Division II national All-Americans, he's one. Dimitri Morcell, and defensive back. I'm trying to see any other names that kind of stand out from a year before, but the predicted order of finish in the CIAA pretty much looks the script on the finish from 2019. Bowie State and Fayetteville State predicted to finish 1 and 2, both of them winning the North and South Division respectfully. Shawan, Virginia State, Virginia Union, 3, 4, and 5. Both teams, all three teams coming out of the North Division. So again, more people think the North Division will be the better division. Then you had 6th Shaw, 7th Elizabeth City State, 8 Johnson C. Smith, 9 Winston-Salem, 10 Lincoln, 11 Livingstone, and 12 St. Aug. I don't know that I say, Drew, that was probably almost a script of what the finish was in 2019.
I think the only thing that I remember looking back at this, Shawan moved up because State was 2 and Union was 3 in 19, and Shawan was 4. So they moved Shawan up in the Northern Division. And they may have flipped Elizabeth City and Lincoln.
Right. And I'll tell you, the other thing about the CIAA is there was a host of some new coaches that were looking to have their debut in 2020 that got interrupted. So I know at some point we're going to try to get on Chris Ferguson. He is Mr. CIAA for D2football.com. And I know Chris has had an opportunity to do all kinds of other things with his life other than talk about football. But when I tell you, I saw him tweeting about the CIAA last week, I got excited. I knew it was football season because I saw Chris Ferguson tweeting about CIAA football. So we're going to bring him on the show hopefully next week, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the CIAA. And then also we'll maybe mix that in with some talk about the MEAC, the SIAC. That'll be busy. I mean, that's a loaded conference, when you say, Drew.
Oh, yes.
And trying to make sense of those conferences where, see, at least when you had some action in the spring, it's like maybe you got a little sense of evaluation and you had the transfer portal, but the D2s, I mean, look, they just CIAA, SIAC, we didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything because there was nothing to report about.
And you've got to be able to keep up with who's still at that school versus who's graduated and who's transferred.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't see a lot of buzz about the transfer portal for D2s, but you got the graduation factor, though. Like you said, you may have guys who, they were given an extra year, but if your school didn't have an opportunity for you to get an extra degree or a master's in something, you might have said, I'm done. I want to go on with trying to pursue something.
Right.
I think
let me go pay some bills.
Hey, the only significant D2 player in the HBCU level that I'm aware of, Tobias Taylor, who put his name into, I believe it was the 2020 draft, decided to take his name out, go back to school, but then he had to transfer in order just to be able to have an opportunity to play. So he did play in the spring. I forgot the name of the school that did play in Division II in the spring. So he did play. I don't know if he has any eligibility left and is playing this fall, but he's a guy who, he's the guy that, you wish, man.
Well, spring didn't count. So if he had a year, if he played in the spring, he can come and play in the fall.
Yeah. So the question is, will he be playing in the fall? But that's just a name, former Virginia Union player that I was thinking.
And the only Division II team that I know that played a game or two was Savannah State.
Yes, you're right.
And so of course, Edward Waters got a couple of games in also.
Lincoln, Missouri played.
Yes, Lincoln of Missouri played. They couple of teams played a couple of check games. Let's just be real about it.
Yes, yeah.
They took a very needed check.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how teams preseason rank these things. And again, we're just, I don't think you can take much stock into it until you a lot of it's going to be based on the numbers from 2019. So don't look at, I don't expect there to be too much of a shock and change in the preseason predictions from 2019, meaning I expect Miles to be favored high. I expect Savannah State to be favored high. I expect Albany State to be favored high. So just a matter, how it all breaks down. So we'll talk about that more in the shows to come. All right, Drew, as we wrap up, let's kind of get some final words and final thoughts here so we can get out of here. What's your final thought, final takes?
Congratulations goes out to my second alma mater, that being the Tuskegee University, who elected Board of Trustees appointed Dr. Charlotte Morris as the 9th president of Tuskegee University. She has served as the interim for at least 2 times, if not 3 times, since Dr. Payton has retired. She's a former chief of staff for Dr. Benjamin Payton, who I believe retired back in 2011. So she's not new to Tuskegee. She's been around the university for 30 years, and they offered her the presidency before, but she did not want to take it. But finally, she's listened to Mother Tuskegee and has decided that she wants to lead Mother Tuskegee now.
All right, congratulations there. Any other final thoughts? Any other quick takes?
No, that's I think that was my biggest take that I wanted to get out. Oh, let me take that back. Watch this SEC expansion. Texas, Oklahoma going into the SEC. But it'll probably be down from the Power 5 to the Big 4 conferences after that. And then you'll have all of the other current FBS members who will come together and have to do something. That will be an opportunity for a conference such as the SWAC to be able to jump in with the big boys as with a 12-member conference. They're tied for the second largest conference in FCS, tied with the Colonial Conference. So I expect those 2 conferences, if something should happen, to position themselves to be able to compete with those not so big boys anymore, with those other also ran conferences. It was the Group of 5 conferences now, which will probably still be the Group of 5 if they don't do anything.
Yeah, it's almost like they have to create maybe an FBS 2. That sounds crazy, but or some offshoot. Like you said, after the 64 in football, it's going to be a whole nother conference or a whole nother division created. And kind of, I agree with you 100%. I could see a SWAC potentially moving in that direction, and even possibly taking a couple of schools with them. It might even become 14-team league. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. I can see it happening, but and we're talking 5 years down the road. So this is Drew and B just throwing this out today, but saying watch 5 years from now.
Here's the sign. If the SWAC is serious about playing business and moving up, watch the Atlanta market. If the SWAC gets a team in the Atlanta market, they are serious about getting ready to go compete with the big boys. They've already got the Houston market, which is one of the largest TV markets in America. They've got the Dallas market. If they could get that Atlanta market to go along with that Florida market, the SWAC will become a major player when it comes to college sports.
Right, and it'll probably have to come without it being a solely dominant HBCU conference. Because
I don't know how they're going to attack the Atlanta market, but somebody is going to have to attack the Atlanta market when it comes to a Division I HBCU conference. Georgia State, Kennesaw State.
I got you.
Clark Atlanta moving up. Something is going to happen in that Atlanta market.
Okay, well said. My last thought and final take will have to be the announcement that Dennis Thomas, Dr. Dennis Thomas of the MEAC, announced his retirement, kind of signaling this string of things that has happened over the MEAC over the past year, or really, yeah, I guess you could say over the past year and a half now, where most recently they had a new director or a new president leading the Council of Presidents, the president from South Carolina State taking over for the president from Howard. To me, that was the first signal that and then also combined with the retirement of Lynn Thompson at Bethune-Cookman. And we started speculating the minute we saw Lynn Thompson step away, watch out for a potential move. Now, we haven't heard anything. We're we don't know what's next, but Lynn Thompson, if he wants it, I think would be a great fit because he knows the MEAC. And if the MEAC is going to be saved, someone of Lynn Thompson's background and what he did at Bethune-Cookman would be a great leader. But the question is it worth saving? And so I think that's the big question for the remaining schools within the MEAC. But I also think in terms of expansion and membership, it may come to a point where they have to merge with someone like an ASUN, a Big South, and see how they can get back to having at least an 8-team football conference. Right now there's 6. They've got to find 2. And I know a lot of people want and wish for Division II teams to move up, but I mean, short of somebody hitting the lottery and paying that bill, it just may not happen, folks. So, we'll celebrate the legacy of Dr. Thomas, and I think it does deserve to be celebrated. And I think he's taken a big hit.
He's taking a hit walking out the door.
Well, but
his overall body of work, he's done a good job.
No doubt. And I'm just saying the hit has come from people who don't understand or respect maybe the history. And maybe you've looked at this small little window, but let's not forget, I mean, a series of unfortunate circumstances. The MEAC was very close to being a 12-team league almost a little over a decade ago. And so you can't help but wonder if that would have happened, what this conference would look like today. They would be the super conference that everyone looks at the SWAC being. It would have been the MEAC. So
it's almost like that car that you had. It's a good car, good motor, and it carried you for a long time, carried you back and forth to school, carried you through your first job and everything else. But now, so it's a little, it'll still run, but it's a little beat up, it's a little rusty, and the maintenance on it is becoming more than it's worth. That's kind of how this tenure has gone. It's time to get a new car. It's time to invest in a new car.
All right, Drew, you've been pushing him out the door for several months now. So I'm just saying, but anyway, so yeah, and then also congrats to Dr. Jason Cable going from being the number 2 man at the SWAC to being the head man at Alabama State. Big kudos to him. So a lot of people in the SWAC are looking to see who will become that number 2 man or woman in the SWAC. So keep your eyes open for that. All right, that's going to do it for us. Make sure to stay tuned to the number of shows within the Black College Sports Network. Dr. Gaville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, as well as the Carlos Brown Show on the weekends. Stay and check out the pregame show. Make sure you're logged in with all of our shows, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. That's where you can find all of the shows. Go to the Google or Apple Play Store. My JBN or my BCSN is where you can download the app. Time those shows go live, or post some new stuff, that's where you can watch it, and then you go everywhere else if you need to. All right, podcast will be up later, all that good stuff. And it's good to have you back, Drew. Good to be back talking, and we'll talk some more media day after we watch what happens this upcoming week, and we'll get a chance to talk about the Big South teams, the MEAC, the SIAC. I've never called it the SIAC or the SEAC. Have you ever called that the SIAC? You ever called it SIAC?
Yeah, I've said SIAC.
I've never SIAC. I've never
SIAC.
I almost said SIAC, but it just didn't sound right as it was preparing to come off my tongue. All right, that's going to do it for this show. Thanks for watching, listening. Make sure to download, subscribe, share with a friend. Go support. Little money, a little cup of coffee, all helps. We appreciate it. That's going to do it for that guy, A.D. Drew. I'm Brian Fulford. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
I'll holler.
But you stay on hard.